Before we start, make sure to take deep breaths and listen into this video who should help you learn and sleep at the first time. The first thing you notice is not the light, it's the bite. The cold metal pressed against raw skin, a ring around your wrists, bruising purple where iron rubbed bone all night. You shift, only slightly, and the chain rattles, that thin music of captivity echoing in your ears louder than any morning bird. The ground beneath you is hard, a mix of straw and dirt, and the smell of sweat, urine and smoke clings to your nose. It's not your home anymore, whatever that was. That part of your life ended yesterday when you stood bare under the midday sun, body oiled, hair cut short, your price called out like the weight of figs in a market stall. Now you wake in Rome, though it is not a Rome you will ever own. The sunrise bleeds across tiled roofs, painting them in soft gold, a beauty you're not allowed to touch. From where you lie, you glimpse the world through the bars of a slave pen, wooden beams slick with years of misery, carved with desperate scratches of names, prayers, curses. The air hums with the groans and coughs of others waking. Boys your age, some younger, some older, all shackled in rows, lying shoulder to shoulder like sardines. The clang of a guard's staff against the post snaps any hope of sleeping longer. You are cattle now, and cattle rise when ordered. Your body remembers yesterday too vividly. The auctioneer's voice still rings in your ears, sharp and nasal, chanting out numbers, praising your youth, your teeth, your strength. You remember the hands of strangers, thick fingers squeezing your arms, probing your ribs, parting your lips to inspect gums as if you were a horse. They didn't ask your name. That had been stripped from you at capture, along with your clothes, along with your dignity. You were presented naked, then clothed in a tunic only after the bidding ended. The tunic now clings with sweat, rough wool scratching against your raw back. The soreness runs deeper than skin. You feel it in your bones, in the way your knees ache from hours of standing still, in the way your shoulders throb from being yanked upright, forced to bow or turn when commanded. Even sleep did not release you. The iron cut deeper when you shifted, each movement punished by pressure. You know this is not the last night you'll wake to such pain. It is only the first. A rooster crows in the distance, though you don't see it. You imagine it perched proudly on a wall, feathers blazing in the dawn. For freeborn Romans, the rooster means the start of another day in the heart of an empire. Breakfast, errands, laughter, baths. For you, it is nothing more than another reminder that days will stretch endlessly, chained and commanded. The guard walks the line, his sandals slapping stone, his eyes sharp. He doesn't need to speak. The whip at his side says everything. You watch him pass, hoping he won't single you out, won't decide you're too slow to rise, too sluggish to be worth the money your master paid. When he turns his head away, you dare a glance towards the city beyond the pen. Rome is already alive. Merchants roll their carts down cobbled streets. Women carry jugs of water from fountains. The smell of bread baking drifts faintly in the air, cruel in its comfort. You won't taste that bread unless your master hands it to you, and even then, not enough to fill your stomach. You belong to someone now, bought like a piece of furniture, and your hunger is no longer yours to solve. You shift your wrists again, trying to find relief. The chains rasp together and you realize the sound has become part of you. You heard it yesterday when the trader led you through the streets, heard it when he locked you into the pen. The clang is a heartbeat louder than your own. Every boy here has it, the music of metal against flesh. Together it forms a chorus of captivity, rising as more stir awake. A boy beside you mutters in a language you don't know, words soft, maybe a prayer or curse. His lips tremble. His face is pale, younger than yours. He can't be more than 12. You want to ask him something, anything, but your throat is dry, tongue stuck to the roof of your mouth, and anyway, what would you say? Words won't unchain either of you. The sun climbs higher, spilling warmth across the pen. It should comfort you, but it doesn't. The light feels like exposure, like scrutiny, like being back on the block. In daylight you have no shadows to hide in. You are visible, owned, defenseless. You remember the eyes of the men who bid on you, scanning your body as if they could already imagine how you would serve them, hauling stone, scrubbing their floors, pouring their wine, or worse. Some looked at you the way wolves look at sheep. You prayed for a buyer with simple needs, someone who wanted a labourer, someone who would leave your body unspoiled. But prayers don't mean much here. The guard barks an order and you jerk upright, legs stiff from the hard ground. The chain tugs at your neighbour's wrists too, forcing him to move with you. That's how it works now. You are linked in suffering. One boy falls, all stumble. You stand because not standing means pain. The guard eyes you, smirks faintly, then looks away. Relief trickles down your spine, fleeting. Tomorrow, or even in an hour, you might not be so lucky. The city grows louder, wagon wheels grind, hoofbeats echo, vendors cry out about olives, figs and fish. Life rushes around you, indifferent. You are inside, yet shut out. You are in Rome, yet not of Rome. Freedom passes by on the street outside, laughing, bargaining, eating, living. You cannot touch it. You breathe slowly, trying to steady the panic in your chest. You tell yourself this is just morning. You survived the night. You will survive this day. But the thought claws back. There will be another night, another morning, another chain. Rome rises with the sun, and you rise with it, not as citizen, not as man, but as property, a possession with a heartbeat. The sky grows brighter, the heat heavier, sweat beads on your neck. Somewhere in the distance a temple bell rings, summoning the free to prayer. You close your eyes and imagine answering that call, walking freely into the marble halls, lighting incense for the gods. Instead, you stand here, iron at your wrists, straw at your feet, Rome swelling around you in brilliance you will never share. This is your dawn now, shackled, sore, and owned. The city sings with freedom, but your song is chains. The sun that gilds the temples, that paints the villas, that warms the streets. It shines on you too, but only to remind you that freedom is gone, and it will not return. The noise hits you first, a roar of voices echoing off stone walls, mingling with the bray of animals, the clatter of carts, and the sing-song chant of the auctioneer. It is not the sound of conversation. It is the sound of commerce, a marketplace of bodies. The air is thick with dust kicked up by sandals and hooves, and every breath feels dry in your throat. You try not to cough, because even a small sound marks you as weak, and weakness is dangerous here. The smell is worse than the noise. Sweat, animal dung, smoke, cheap wine spilling from jars, and the metallic tang of fear. It clings to you as surely as the chalk lines the trader scrawled on your skin. Your head feels lighter than it should, scalp bare where your hair once was. The razor scraped you down yesterday, every strand gone, leaving only stubble and scratches. You had liked your hair once, or at least it had been yours. Now it has joined the pile that lies in the corner of the pen, mixed with the shorn locks of dozens of other boys and men, tossed aside like refuse. The chalk marks sting faintly on your chest and shoulders. They are not for you, not messages you can read. They tell buyers where you came from, what language you speak, perhaps even what condition you were in when captured. You don't need to read them to understand. They reduce you to a commodity. Your story, your memories, your name, none of those matter here. You are chalk, flesh, price. They herd you out into the square, chains clinking in time with the shuffle of bare feet. The crowd is already gathering, men in cloaks, women in jewelry, servants holding purses for their masters. They look at you not with curiosity, but calculation. They are here to invest, to expand households, farms, quarries, kitchens, and beds. You are not a boy to them. You are a tool waiting to be used. The auctioneer stands tall on his platform, toga bright against the grime of the crowd, voice sharp and trained to cut through noise. He flourishes his staff, calls out prices, praises the strength of arms, the whiteness of teeth, the youth of flesh. His words turn people into advertisements. He doesn't say this boy was taken from his home in the night. He says, healthy, strong, fit for labor. He doesn't say, this one has known hunger. He says, lean, ready for endurance. He doesn't say, he weeps when he thinks no one is watching. He says, docile, obedient, useful. Then it's your turn. A hand shoves your back hard enough that you stumble onto the platform. The boards are hot from the sun, rough beneath your feet. The crowd leans in. Eyes rake your body, scanning you with the hunger of ownership. You feel naked, though they gave you a thin tunic. It doesn't matter. Their gaze strips it away. You hear them murmuring, evaluating, debating. Some smile faintly, some scowl, some squint like farmers inspecting a mule. You stand still because you must, but inside your stomach twists until you think you might be sick. The auctioneer grips your chin, yanking your head to one side so the crowd can see your profile. He jerks it the other way. He tells them your age or what he guesses it to be. He forces your mouth open so they can see your teeth, jabbing his finger at your gums. A ripple goes through the crowd, approving noises. You don't hear all the words, but you catch fragments. Strong, young, durable. They say it as if you aren't standing here, as if you are a barrel of grain. One man steps closer, lifts your arm, squeezes your bicep. His hands are rough, calloused, the hands of someone who works fields. He nods, but doesn't smile. Another approaches, fingers prodding your ribs, pressing into your stomach as if testing for rot. You flinch, but you don't pull away. You can't. A woman examines your legs, kneels briefly to pinch your calf, then rises without a glance at your face. None of them meet your eyes for long. They don't want to see a person, they want to see property. The bidding begins. The auctioneer shouts a number, then another, his voice rising like a song. Hands lift, voices call, the numbers climb. You don't understand the currency, but you hear the urgency in their tones. They want you, not you as you are, but you as you will be when broken, trained and bent to their will. You feel dizzy. You think of the life behind you, the one you had before chains, and it feels like a dream fading in daylight. This is reality now. Strangers haggling over your future. The heat grows unbearable. Sweat runs down your back, makes the chalk smear. You resist the urge to wipe it away. That chalk is all that defines you here. Without it, you are nothing but noise. The crowd cheers as the numbers climb higher. Your chest tightens, not with pride, but dread. A high price means a master with expectations, with demands you may not survive. A low price means you are disposable. There is no victory. At last, the auctioneer slams his staff on the boards. The final number rings out, sealing your fate. A man in the front lowers his hand, nods to confirm. He is your owner now. Just like that, with a gesture, a glance, a purse of coins, your life belongs to someone else. You look at him, trying to memorize his face, but he is already turning away, speaking to his servant. You are not worth a second look. They pull you from the platform, shove you toward him. The chain at your wrists tugs, forcing you forward. The crowd turns to the next body, the next boy, the next item for sale. You are forgotten even as you are purchased. Another takes your place, and the chant begins again. The cycle doesn't stop. Your new master's servant hands over a collar, inscribed with a name that isn't yours, a plea for your return if you run. They fit it around your neck, the metal cool at first, then warming with your skin. You know it will never come off unless they decide it. You glance one last time at the platform where another boy now stands, chalk bright against his chest, eyes wide with fear. You want to tell him something, anything, but the words die in your throat. You don't even know what you would say. The square hums with life. Free people laugh, eat, argue, trade. You walk past them, tethered to your master's servant, the collar heavy, the chain tighter now. The city swallows you whole. The auction fades behind you, but the sound of the auctioneer's chant, the press of strangers' hands, the burn of their eyes, it stays with you. It will stay forever. You are not a boy anymore. You are a purchase, a possession, a number called aloud, a body marked in chalk. And Rome is just beginning to decide what it will do with you. The first days in the household are the hardest, though you do not realize yet how endless they will feel when stretched into years. The villa seems enormous at first glance, a maze of courtyards, rooms, storerooms, and gardens, each one with its own demands. To the freeborn family who owns it, the space is a mark of wealth and prestige. To you, it is an arena of labor. Every stone tile and marble column another reminder that your body exists to polish, carry, serve, and bend. The dawn begins long before the masters stir. You are shaken awake by an older slave, a man whose face is lined like cracked leather, who tells you with a hiss to move quickly if you want to avoid a beating. There is no breakfast waiting, only a jug of stale water passed around, and a scrap of bread that disappears too fast to remember tasting it. Then it begins. The chores are endless, and none of them belong to you. Scrubbing floors is the first task. The marble shines when the masters walk it, but it only shines because knees like yours have pressed into it for hours, rag in hand, bucket beside you, back screaming as you scour away dust and footprints. The water grows grey quickly, and you change it again and again, hauling fresh buckets from the cistern, each one heavier than the last. The floors themselves seem to mock you, their colourful mosaics, mythical heroes, gods, hunts and battles, glittering under your sweat. You clean the faces of Achilles and Venus with your raw hands, yet you are forbidden even to raise your eyes to the face of your master. Each tile glows brighter when you finish, but no one praises you. If anything, you are invisible, the gleam of the floor credited to the wealth of the household, not to the boy who crawled on it. When the floors are done, there is water to haul. The cistern and fountain must be full, amphorae carried in for the kitchens, baths prepared with buckets passed hand to hand. The weight bows your spine, cuts grooves into your shoulders, and you learn quickly how to balance the jars to keep from spilling. A broken amphora means more than the loss of clay. It means lashes, sometimes salt rubbed into the wounds so you will not forget. You see one boy punished like that and never forget the way he screamed. The lesson is clear. If you stumble, you suffer, so you don't stumble. You grit your teeth, you steady your arms, and you keep walking, back and forth until your legs tremble and your chest heaves. The hours blur. Tasks pile on one another, each one as menial as the last. Sweep the courtyard, fetch wood for the brazier, polish the bronze lampstands until they reflect light, tend to the laundry. You touch more clothing in one day than you ever owned in your life. Tunics, stolas, cloaks, all belonging to others, all demanding care. Soap stings your hands. The icy water of the wash basin numbs your fingers, but you keep scrubbing until fabric is clean. The masters will never notice. They will simply dress, look into polished mirrors, and assume it is their right to appear spotless. Banquets are the worst, not because they happen every night, but because when they do, your body is stretched into hours of silent attendance. You stand behind the reclining couches, wine jug in hand, waiting for the smallest signal, a glance, a raised finger, a snap. You're trained to anticipate need, to pour before the cup is empty, to remove a plate before a morsel is left to grow cold. You must be still, perfectly still, even as your legs cramp and your arms ache from holding the jug. You must smile faintly, or at least keep your face blank, because a frown, a sigh, even an eye flicker can be judged insolence. The smells torture you more than the labour. Platters of roasted meat, honeyed pastries, bowls of olives and figs, fish draped in spices, all pass before you within reach and never yours. You might carry them, balance them, serve them, but the taste never touches your tongue unless you steal a crumb when no one is watching. And if you are caught, punishment follows. Hunger gnaws at your belly as you watch the masters gorge themselves, laugh loudly, argue over politics, recite poetry. Your own silence grows louder in your ears, a reminder that your words do not matter here. You exist as a shadow at their table, a presence without voice. Every mistake risks punishment. You learn this quickly, perhaps the first night. A jug tipped slightly too fast, a drop of wine staining a cushion, a stumble as you pass a plate, and the world freezes. A whip of anger in the master's eyes, the room silent, the guests watching. Then the blow comes, maybe a slap across the face, maybe the lash later, maybe worse. You do not know until it lands. Your cheek burns, your pride shrinks, but you do not cry out. Tears are weakness, and weakness invites more cruelty. Every success, on the other hand, passes without notice. If you keep the floor spotless, if the wine flows without pause, if the lamps are trimmed just right to light the feast without smoke, no one speaks of it. The household runs smoothly because you run yourself into exhaustion, but the masters believe it runs smoothly because they command it so. Their satisfaction is not meant for you. At best, your success means you survive another day without pain. That is the only reward. At night, when the banquet ends, you clean again. You gather scraps, wash goblets, sweep away bones gnawed down to nothing, pour out the dregs of wine and scrape the grease from trays. You breathe the smell of excess, sickly sweet, heavy, and you carry it with you back to the quarters. Your arms shake, your back throbs, your knees are raw from kneeling. You collapse into straw, muscles still twitching, only to be shaken awake again when dawn comes. This is the rhythm of household labour, day after day, task after task. Silence your constant companion. You watch the masters laugh, but you cannot laugh. You watch them eat, but you cannot eat. You scrub their floors, haul their water, polish their wealth, and hold your breath when they pass by, praying not to be noticed. For to be noticed is rarely a blessing. The villa itself begins to imprint on you. You know which tiles creak, which doors swing smoothly, which stairway stays damp and slick. You memorize the arrangement of jars in the storeroom, the sound of footsteps that tell you which master approaches. You learn to predict moods, to sense the anger in a clenched jaw before it becomes a lash across your back. You learn to move like air, present but unseen, a shadow in plain sight. Still, no matter how hard you work, the truth seeps into you. You're not part of this household. You are not family. You are not servant with dignity. You are labour. You are hands. You are silence. And the villa's beauty, the mosaics, the fountains, the scent of lavender in the atrium rests on your broken body. The free walk past you without a glance, as if the wine pours itself, as if the lamps light themselves, as if the floors shine with no effort. You are erased even as you are indispensable. That is the deepest wound, the one no lash can leave, that your humanity has been scrubbed away more thoroughly than any flaw, leaving only labour in its place. And so the days stretch forward, each one indistinguishable from the last. Scrubbing floors, hauling water, standing behind banquets, your mistakes punished, your successes forgotten. The villa will remember you only in the gleam reflection in bronze, but no name will be attached, no story kept alive. You will vanish into its walls, into its labor until you are gone, and another boy takes your place just as you once replaced another. The household endures. You endure for as long as you can. The first time they send you out beyond the city walls, you feel as though you've been exiled to another world. The villa's marble floors and perfumed air vanish behind you, replaced by fields that stretch endlessly, rows of vines and wheat glistening in the morning dew. The land looks beautiful from afar, a patchwork of gold and green under the rising sun. But beauty is not what you see once the work begins. Beauty is what the master sees when he rides past on horseback, nodding with satisfaction at his fertile acres. What you see is the hoe in your hand, the blisters that rise within an hour, the sweat already stinging your eyes long before the day has truly started. You are not alone, of course. Dozens of others are driven out with you. A shuffling line of chained labourers marched under the watch of overseers armed with whips. Some are older, their backs bowed from years of this toil. Some are boys like you, eyes wide, shoulders narrow, still learning how to endure. The overseer wastes no time. Orders barked in a voice hoarse from years of shouting, gestures sharp and impatient. Tools are thrust into your hands. Dig, cut, harvest, carry. The rhythm is fast, unrelenting. Hesitation means a lash, and the lash does not discriminate. The sun climbs quickly, turning dew to steam. Your tunic clings to your skin, heavy with sweat, and soon your arms ache with a pain that seems impossible so early in the day. You dig anyway, because there is no choice. You pull weeds until your nails break, until the dirt turns your fingers black. You haul baskets of grapes until the straps cut into your shoulders, the fruit sticky against your chest. You swing the hoe until your palms split, then swing it again, because stopping means someone else will fall behind, and when one falls behind, all are punished. The overseer's whip cracks in the air like thunder. You hear it often, sometimes landing on someone else's back, sometimes snapping inches from your own ear as a warning. The sound alone is enough to keep you moving. The man who carries it does not tire. He rides a small stool, shaded under a broad hat, drinking from a flask while you and the others bend under the weight of labour. His comfort is salt rubbed into your wounds. Time ceases to feel like hours. It becomes marked only by tasks completed and the gnawing of your stomach. Midday brings no feast, only a crust of bread if the overseer is generous. Water scooped from a bucket that tastes of iron and dirt. You gulp it anyway, desperate, knowing it is never enough. Hunger becomes as constant as the heat. You chew until your jaw aches, not from abundance but from scarcity, from trying to stretch the smallest scrap into something that feels like sustenance. Then the tools are thrust back into your hands and the afternoon stretches longer than you thought possible. The fields are not the only prison. Sometimes you are sent to the quarry, a place even harsher where the earth itself seems determined to break you. The sun bakes the stone until it radiates heat like an oven. Dust hangs in the air, coating your tongue, your throat, your lungs. You swing the hammer down on the rock again and again, arms vibrating from the impact, shards flying dangerously close to your face. Gloves are not given. Protection is not offered. The stone takes pieces of you with every strike. Skin peeled from your knuckles, blood from your palms, strength from your bones. The noise of the quarry is deafening. Hammers pounding, voices shouting, rocks splitting with cracks like lightning. The overseer's whip is less necessary here, for the stone itself whips you with every swing. You see men faint, collapsing in clouds of dust, their bodies dragged aside like broken tools. Sometimes they rise again, sometimes they do not. The work does not stop either way. You learn quickly not to look too long at the fallen, not to imagine yourself in their place. Survival means endurance, not sympathy. Night brings no true rest. When you return to the quarters, muscles quivering, shoulders raw, the The straw mat beneath you feels like a luxury, but gives no real relief. Your body throbs with every heartbeat, as if the earth itself is still pounding through your veins. Sleep comes quickly, but it is restless, full of dreams where you are always working, always carrying, always breaking. You wake in the dark with your hands curled as if gripping tools, and the day begins again with the same cruel rhythm. The seasons bring no mercy. In summer, the heat burns your skin until it peels, blisters rising under the relentless sun. In winter, cold mud clings to your legs as you trudge through fields, fingers stiff, breath turning to mist. Rain soaks your tunic, adding weight to every movement, while the overseer's whip still cracks, indifferent to weather. The land demands labor in every season, and the master demands it be done. You are the link between those demands, a body pressed into service with no end in sight. You sometimes wonder how long a body can last like this. You see the answer in the older slaves, the ones with stooped backs, joints swollen, eyes dulled. They move slowly, but they move still, driven by the same whip, haunted by the same hunger. You fear becoming them, yet you fear dying even more. The line between the two is thin, and you tread it every day. Among the other boys, there are no games, no laughter, only whispered encouragements to keep going, to lift, to swing, to endure. You learn to pace yourself, to breathe in rhythm with the work, to let your mind drift away even as your body labors. Sometimes you imagine you are somewhere else, back in the place you came from, though the memory grows fainter with each passing day. Sometimes you count your steps, your swings, your breaths, as if numbers alone can carry you to the end of the day. Endurance becomes your only prayer. Hope is a luxury, a dangerous temptation. Hope whispers that freedom might come, that manumission might one day be granted, that rebellion might succeed. But you know better. You have seen what happens to those who listen too closely to hope. The crucifixions lining the roads, bodies left to rot as warnings. Endurance, not hope, keeps your head down and your body moving. Endurance means another day survived. Yet, even in this, the cruelty is sharpened by indifference. The master does not see you. He sees his fields heavy with grain, his wine jars filled, his stone quarried for a new bathhouse. He praises the overseer, never the laborers. Your suffering enriches him, but in his eyes it does not exist. You are invisible even in your agony, a tool that wears itself down for his glory. And so the fields stretch, the quarry yawns, and you return to them again and again. The sun rises, the whip cracks, the stone splits, and your body bends. There is no end, no finish line, only the endless demand of labor. Survival becomes an art, an instinct, a dull rhythm of motion and breath. You endure because not enduring is worse. You endure because it is the only thing left to you. When you close your eyes at night, your dreams are filled not with freedom but with work, as if even your sleep belongs to the fields and the quarry. And in truth, it does. For here, in the heart of Rome's empire, endurance is not victory. Endurance is simply survival, and survival is all you have. The first time you hear the word gladiator whispered in the slave barracks, it sounds like both a curse and a promise. The older men spit the word with contempt, muttering that only the unlucky are chosen for the arena. But the younger ones, not yet broken, lean forward in the dark, eyes wide, as though it carries a spark of hope, a chance for glory, or at least for a death worth remembering. For you, the word sinks into your stomach like a stone. You don't want glory. You don't want the roar of crowds. You want air without chains and sleep without nightmares. But you don't get to choose. When they come for you, it is morning, though the light barely touches the ground inside the training yard. They snap shackles around your wrists and lead you out, the clink of iron announcing your fate. A lanista, the man who owns and trains gladiators, looks you over with the same calculating gaze you once saw on the auction block. He doesn't see a boy. He sees potential muscle, potential spectacle, another body to throw into sand for the amusement of free citizens. He nods once, and that nod seals it. You are no longer just a household or field slave. You are property destined for the arena. The training school smells of sweat and iron. It rings with the sound of wood striking wood, metal clashing against shields, the bark of commands. Boys and men move in pairs under the eyes of trainers, their bodies slick with exertion, their faces set with grim concentration. You are shoved among them, a wooden sword thrust into your hand. The weight surprises you, heavier than you expect, the handle rough against your palm. Before you can adjust, a voice shouts, and another boy charges at you. The impact jolts through your arm, rattling your teeth. You stumble backward, nearly fall, but a whip cracks behind you, and you find your footing again. The days fall into a brutal rhythm. Dawn begins with chains rattling as you are herded into the yard. Hunger gnaws at you constantly. Meals are little more than barley porridge and beans, enough to keep you alive, not enough to fill you. Training consumes the hours, drills that force your body past exhaustion, strikes repeated until your arms shake uncontrollably, footwork patterns carved into your muscles whether you understand them or not. The trainers shout, curse, strike with rods when you falter. Every mistake is pain, every success is silence. You learn quickly that this is not play. The wooden swords bruise your arms, welt your ribs, split your lip. Shields slam against your body with enough force to knock the wind out of you. When one boy fails to rise fast enough, the trainer kicks him in the stomach until he curls like a beaten dog. Blood on the sand is no accident. It is instruction. Pain is as much a teacher as any drill. At night, your body feels broken. You lie on a straw mat, bruises blossoming across your skin, hands blistered and raw. Around you, the barracks hum with whispers. Some boys talk of survival, of keeping their heads down until the lanista decides they are too weak for the arena and sells them back to households. Others dream of the roar of the crowd, of catching a patron's eye, of earning freedom with enough victories. You listen, eyes half closed, and wonder if either is possible. Survival feels fragile, like a thread that could snap at any moment. Freedom feels like a cruel joke. What haunts you most is the uncertainty. Every morning when the door creaks open, you wonder if today is the day they will march you to the amphitheater. You picture the sand bright under the sun, the stands filled with thousands of eyes, the air electric with expectation. You imagine stepping out into that arena, heart pounding, legs trembling, weapon in hand, knowing that someone across from you is also desperate, also fighting to live. The thought follows you into training, into meals, into sleep. Tomorrow, you tell yourself. Tomorrow they might call my name. Tomorrow might bring blood. The trainers don't allow you to forget it. They speak of the arena constantly, painting it as the ultimate test, the place where boys become men, where cowards die, where the empire itself watches. They tell you that hesitation means death, that fear means death, that weakness means death. They beat these lessons into your body until you feel them in your bones. You swing the sword until your shoulders burn, raise the shield until your arms shake, because to fail here is to die later, and dying later seems better than dying now. Even in exhaustion, there are moments that sear themselves into memory. The first time you draw blood from another boy with a strike too hard, too fast, and he stumbles back, clutching his shoulder, eyes wide with pain and betrayal. The first time a trainer nods at you, not with approval, but with acknowledgement that you might be worth the investment. The first time you hear the crowd in the distance, cheering from the amphitheater beyond the walls. A sound that seeps into your marrow and reminds you where this path leads. Sometimes, lying awake in the dark, you wonder which fate is worse. Endless labor in the fields until your body collapses, or a few brief years of fighting under the eyes of Rome, ending in blood and sand. You wonder if the crowd will cheer your name, or if they will forget you the moment your body is dragged from the arena floor. You wonder if survival here is really survival at all, or just another form of dying, slower, crueler. And yet, despite the fear, despite the hunger, despite the chains, you endure. You rise each morning, take the sword, obey the commands. Not because you believe in glory, not because you long for freedom, but because the body clings stubbornly to life, even when the mind despairs. You survive one more drill, one more blow, one more day. You learn to stand straighter under the whip, to hide your fear behind a mask of blankness, to swing harder when your arms beg to rest. Endurance becomes instinct, not choice. The shadow of the arena hangs over you always. It fills your dreams. It lingers in every bruise. It whispers in every silence. You know that one day soon the gates will open, the crowd will roar, and you will step onto the sand. You don't know if you will live or die. You don't know if the gods themselves care. You only know that tomorrow might bring blood, and when it does, you will not be ready. No one ever is. The moment you are taken into a Roman household, your youth becomes a target as much as your labor. You learn quickly that strength earns you tasks in the field or the kitchen, but softness, smooth skin, a young face, a body not yet hardened by toil draws eyes of another kind. At first, you don't understand what the glances mean. The master's wives examine your shoulders the way they might a piece of cloth. Older men linger on you too long, their gaze not assessing whether you can carry water or polish bronze, but weighing you as though you were a ripe fruit to be tasted. You feel it when they pass close behind you, when their hand rests on your shoulder a beat too long, when they smile at you with a softness that isn't kindness. There is no preparation for it, no warning. One night, when the lamps are low and the house is quiet, you are summoned. Not with words, but with a gesture from a servant who has been through this before. You follow, confused, stomach tight, footsteps heavy on the stone floor. The chamber you enter is warm with incense, the couch draped in silk. The master reclines, cup of wine in hand, his eyes already fixed on you. He doesn't speak. He doesn't need to. You understand when the door closes behind you and you are alone with him. Consent is a word you will never hear. What happens in that room is not framed as choice. You are property, and property does not refuse its owner. The first time is the worst, because innocence dies quickly when paired with violation. You try not to cry, try not to resist, because resistance brings pain and punishment, and pain is already threaded into every breath. Afterward, you are dismissed like an object that has served its purpose. No one asks if you are all right. No one speaks of it the next day. But the eyes of the older slaves tell you they know, and their silence says they cannot help. It does not end with the master. Guests who drink too deeply at banquets sometimes gesture toward the slaves standing nearby, laughter in their voices as they request one to warm the bed. You are traded for an evening like a cup of wine, passed along to amuse, to entertain, to satisfy. Strangers who have never heard your name touch you as though you were theirs, because in truth you are. If a guest wants you, the master nods, and you are taken. The value of a good host lies partly in the bodies he can offer, and your body becomes currency. Even the streets hold danger. Sometimes you are sent to the market, your tunic marking you as a slave, and the free men who brush past know that you cannot protest. Their hands grope without shame, their voices whisper suggestions or commands, and you grit your teeth and keep walking. You know that if you fight back, if you raise your voice, it will be you who is punished when you return, accused of dishonoring the household. To survive, you lower your eyes and let indignities slide across you like water, though inside they burn. Your youth, which should mean innocence, becomes instead a commodity. A boy with soft skin is considered desirable, pliant, easy to control. You hear of others sent to special houses in the Subura, brothels where slaves serve anyone with enough coin, their bodies sold by the hour. Some are locked away until summoned, others paraded before clients. You know it could be your fate too, if your master ever decides the coins outweigh the convenience of keeping you in the house. The thought follows you like a shadow. You adapt because you must. You learn to leave your mind behind, to float somewhere far away when the door closes and hands press against you. You learn to read the moods of those who summon you, to anticipate what will please them quickly, so the ordeal ends sooner. You learn to still your face, to mask disgust with blankness, to swallow your shame so it does not choke you. Some boys laugh too loudly, try to charm, to pretend it is a game. Some grow silent and hard, their eyes dead long before their bodies are. Each finds a way to survive, though survival feels like a word stretched thin and fragile. What you cannot escape is the knowledge that this is not an accident, not a rare cruelty, but a system. Rome is built on the assumption that the bodies of slaves are possessions, no different from tools or animals. Philosophers debate the virtues of liberty while lying with slave boys at night. Politicians who thunder about honor and virtue keep entire households of concubines. Poets write verses comparing young slaves to cupids, mocking love while glorifying desire. The city celebrates itself with temples and games, but in its shadows, the bodies of the young are consumed silently, endlessly. Sometimes when the night is done and you lie alone, you think of the person you might have been. A boy with choices, a boy with dignity, a boy who could say no. That boy no longer exists. He was sold at the auction block, shaved and chalked and stripped of a future. What remains is a body that belongs to others, parcelled out as they wish. You wonder how long you can endure it before something inside you withers beyond repair, and yet you wake each morning because you must. You scrub floors, you carry water, you polish lamps, and when you are summoned, you go. You live in a marketplace where your youth is the price tag, your body the merchandise, your silence the currency. There is no bargain, no negotiation. There is only obedience. You catch your reflection sometimes in the polished bronze of a water jug or a mirror you are cleaning. The face that stares back is not the one you remember. The eyes are older, harder, the mouth is tight, unsmiling. You look like someone who has lived too long in shadows. Though you are still young, you know those shadows will not lift. You are growing up in chains, and every year that passes is another year taken. The whispers among the slaves tell you this. Beauty fades. Youth slips away. The attention that feels unbearable now will eventually pass to another boy, and when it does, you will be cast aside, your body redirected to other labours. But even that is not comfort. By then, you will be scarred in ways no whip could leave, carrying memories that cannot be scrubbed from your skin. You will move into the fields, the quarries, the kitchens with everyone else, older, hardened, yet still owned. Freedom will not come with age, only a different kind of use. In the end, you understand that you are not just enslaved to Rome's hunger for labour, but also to its hunger for pleasure. Both devour you in different ways, but with the same indifference. The city does not see you. It sees a resource, one to be consumed, one to be replaced. And so you continue, silent, obedient, your youth sold piece by piece until nothing of it remains. The first time you are handed a wax tablet, you almost laugh. It feels absurd, a child's toy compared to the weight of amphorae and farm tools. The stylus is smooth, its point sharp but harmless, and the tablet smells faintly of honeyed wood. overseer doesn't smile when he presses it into your hands. He tells you sternly that your master has chosen you to learn letters, not for your own sake, not to lift you from chains, but to sharpen you into a more useful instrument. In that moment you understand. Knowledge here is not freedom. Knowledge is another collar, only thinner, less visible, but just as binding. Your mornings change. Instead of hauling water or polishing bronze lamps, you kneel in a corner of the atrium, stylus in hand, tracing letters under the watch of a tutor. He is not cruel in the way overseers are, but his indifference cuts just as sharply. He calls you poor boy, never your name, never even the name you once had before Rome erased it. He drills you in the alphabet until the shapes burn behind your eyelids, then moves on to words, simple phrases, lines from Homer and Virgil. At first, the symbols feel alien, scratches on wax that mean nothing, but slowly, under repetition, they begin to sing. You recognize them, you string them together, and a new world opens. The cruel irony is that the world you glimpse is not yours to walk through. The masters boast of their educated slaves. A boy who can write becomes a scribe, a secretary, a tutor to the freeborn children. You begin to take dictation, lists of goods for the household, accounts of grain collected, letters to be sent across the city. The stylus flies across the wax, your hand cramping, your back stiff, but you cannot falter. Mistakes are costly. If you miswrite a name, if you confuse a number, the master's anger comes swiftly. He does not care that you are still learning, that your hand trembled, that your mind wandered. To him, knowledge is not a burden. It is a tool that should perform flawlessly, and you are the tool. You see how easily knowledge serves power. You copy contracts that seal the purchase of more slaves. You pen invitations to banquets where you will stand silently, jug in hand. You draft lists of punishments to be doled out to those who faltered in their work. Each stroke of your stylus strengthens the hand that holds your chains. It gnaws at you, the knowledge that you are forced to wield intelligence against your own kind, that your learning does not lift but presses down harder. Some days you are ordered to sit with the master's sons, teaching them the very letters that were beaten into you. They giggle when you speak, mocking your accent, tossing wax tablets aside when bored. Yet you must correct them gently, bow your head when they insult you, coax them through their lessons, though you yourself longed for a teacher once. You realize quickly that your intellect is not respected. It is appropriated. They praise the boys for reciting verses, not you for guiding their clumsy tongues. They scold you if their son fails, as though your servitude infects the child with laziness. You feel the weight of being invisible again, even as your mind sharpens. At night, when the house is still, you replay the words in your head. You whisper them under your breath, savoring their shape, letting meaning unfold. In stolen moments, you carve letters into scraps of wood, or draw them in dust with your fingertip, not for the master, not for his sons, but for yourself. The act feels dangerous, almost rebellious, as if every secret line you write belongs only to you. For a moment, knowledge feels like it could be yours, not theirs. But dawn always strips that illusion. The wax tablet returns, the tutor calls, the master dictates. You remember that every phrase you learn is meant to serve. Knowledge that in another life might have been a lantern becomes instead a chain, polished to gleam like enlightenment but binding you just the same. You see the paradox clearly. Rome praises wisdom, yet denies it to the enslaved. It believes literacy makes men civilized, yet it grants you literacy only so you may remain a better servant. Still, the power of words lingers. You notice how the free speak differently, how the weight of their voices grows when they quote lines of poetry, how respect gathers when they cite law or history. You begin to understand that Rome itself is built on language, on speeches in the Senate, on decrees carved into stone, on contracts signed with names. Power flows through letters as much as through swords. And though you are trapped, part of you cannot stop drinking in that power, cannot stop shaping words in the dark like a secret flame cupped in your hands. The cruelest truth is this: they cannot take back what you have learned. They can force you to use it for them, but the letters remain in your mind even when the stylus is gone. You think sometimes of carving your own story, of recording the truth of what it means to live in chains. You imagine leaving scratches on walls, marks hidden in ledgers, messages only other slaves could understand. The thought flickers in you like a candle, fragile, easily extinguished, but real. And so you continue. Day after day you bend over wax tablets, your back stiff, your wrists sore, your mind sharpening under a discipline that was never meant to free you. The masters see only utility, another layer of control, but inside knowledge grows. It is bitter knowledge, cruel knowledge, twisted into servitude, but it is yours all the same, and perhaps one day it may be more than chains. The first lash you receive is not loud, it is precise, a single crack that sears across your back and teaches you to count the air as it leaves your lungs. It is a lesson in sound and timing. Before the second strike, your body is already folding around the memory of the first. You learn quickly how to hold yourself so that fewer nerves scream, how to breathe shallow and steady to make the pain less jagged. The lash leaves a red wake that blooms into purple. Later it will flatten into a pale line you can trace with your fingers in the dark. You will learn to hide the marks from curious eyes, to wear cloaks and tunics in the heat, to sleep in a position that keeps clothing pressed to bruises so they scab without anyone noticing. The world teaches you adaptations like these until they feel as natural as walking. Punishment in Rome is not an improvisation. It is a ritual of control administered with a craft born of repetition. The overseer paces like a judge choosing the instrument, a rod, a strap, a whip braided with leather, each one calibrated for different offenses and different messages. Sometimes the blow is quick and private, meant to correct. Sometimes it is public, meant to shame, to humiliate, to set an example. You feel the geometry of power in those moments, your body bent beneath a lash, the space opening before the crowd, the spectator master whose eyes flick between you and his guests as if gauging his own authority. The punishment is not only for you, it is a spectacle that teaches everyone their place. Branding is worse because it turns punishment into permanence. You watch once because they make some of you watch, while another boy is forced to kneel on a slab of stone. The iron is red with heat, a cruel star, a letter, or a mark that names the owner. The smell that rises is like burnt hair and iron. It fills the air with a metallic scream. The iron presses, hot and immovable, until the skin yields and blackens. You see the boy's face, mouth pressed into a silent line, eyes squeezed shut as if he could claw the pain away with his lids. When the iron is lifted, the flesh peels slightly away, smoking, and the overseer hisses that the mark will never leave. It sits on the skin like a secret written in blood, and the secret is ownership. Later, someone threads a collar around your neck with a small plate fixed to its front. The metal glints in harsh sunlight and is cold at first, then quickly warms to your skin. On it, letters are hammered, a name or worse, a plea. Return me to my master. You tug at it once, half expecting it to pop off. But it is solid, welded and riveted, designed to endure. The collar weighs more than you expected. It bruises the hollow beneath your throat when you lower your head. At night it rubs against the skin until it leaves raw, angry crescents there. You think of the collar as a second voice for the owner, a sentence pinned to your body that the world can read. When you move through the streets, it jingles softly. People glance, and the glance is enough. The collar says what your words cannot. You belong. Shame is part of the punishment as much as pain. Information travels faster than blood. A whipping in public is not merely correction. It is theatre designed to strip you of dignity in front of others, neighbours, passers-by, other slaves who must now watch and learn. The master might demand that you bear your marks openly, that you walk with a lowered head through the forum so free citizens might see what happens to those who displease. A nickname may be shouted that follows you for years, muttered with laughter by the children who think cruelty amusing. Shame attaches itself to your name, curling around it until your own identity feels foreign. You fold inward, carrying the knowledge that others now know you as punished, branded, less than human. The brutality is often accompanied by a bureaucratic efficiency. Records are kept, inventories adjusted. The ledger that once listed amphorae and oil now includes men with crosses beside their names, notations about temper and obedience. You find yourself reduced to a line item in a book, a tally to be corrected with a pen and struck through with a new price. Even punishment is administered with an eye toward profit. A broken spirit is easier to sell. A marked body is harder to run. The cruelty is rationalized, justified in the same breath that counts the coin. It is a kind of arithmetic. Pain subtracted from value, shame added to compliance. Sometimes punishment is indiscriminate. A child spills wine at a banquet and every slave in the kitchen is lashed until one of them breaks and names a supposed culprit. Sometimes it is deliberate precision. You are singled out for a small failure because the master's mood demands a target. And sometimes it is performative cruelty, a private satisfaction unfolded in the quiet of the study where the owner calls you close and bends a rule just to prove he can. No matter the reason, the outcome is the same. Your body is a ledger written upon, and the marks are evidence not of sin, but of claim. You learn to read the air, to predict who might lash out and why. A flicker of impatience across a master's face, a spill, a missed step. These small signs multiply into a storm. You see it in the way the older slaves move, in the stiffness around their shoulders, in the way they lower their eyes. They have come to map the patterns of reprisal, to understand which mistakes swallow mercy and which welcome correction. They teach you the evasions, keep your hands visible, apologize quickly in the right tone, present your chest while bending your torso to receive a blow on the edge where it bruises less. The lessons are practical and bitter. They save flesh but not pride. The physical wounds heal into scarred testimony, but the lasting hurt is quieter. The knowledge that your body can be marked and displayed at will, that you can be turned into a warning sign for other boys. You carry that lesson always. It is a thread woven through your days, dictating how you walk, how you speak, and how loudly you breathe. At times, the awareness presses so tight it feels like another band of iron around your ribs. Occasionally, punishment inspires a dangerous hope. You see how some who are marked more deeply become exceptionally careful, bending with the wind of command until their masters remark on their value and perhaps spare them from harsher work. You watch a boy with a brand on his cheek move through the household and be chosen as a personal attendant rather than thrown to the fields. The trade-off is clear. Conformity buys a different sort of safety. It is not freedom, only a shift in suffering. Yet when you are wet with rain, collar chafing, muscles numb from labour, this bargain can seem almost like mercy. You consider it, and the thought tastes of iron. There are rare times when punishment brings unexpected solidarity. After a public lash, other boys come close later in the barracks, pressing a small piece of bread into the wounded hand, murmuring a word you might not understand but feel in its warmth. These small acts stitch a fragile human network beneath the formal hierarchy. They do not erase the collar or the brand, but they remind you that you are not wholly alone in pain. The bonds of shared suffering can be a quiet rebellion, a way to keep memory and dignity alive when the world seeks to strip both away. At night, when the household sleeps, You trace scars with careful fingertips, as if reading a map of places you survived. Each line is a story you do not tell, a page that no one will write down. You press your palm there and vow, in a small voice, to remember the face you had before the iron started to shape you. Memory becomes your resistance. Even as shame is inked into flesh, you carry inside you a ledger of names, songs, smells, tiny things the masters dismiss as irrelevant. But to you, they are proof that you were once more than a mark. The next morning, the sun rises and the world moves on. The whip is cleaned, the iron cooled and stored, the ledger updated. You stand, shoulders crooked, collar heavy, brand warm under the sun. The routine resumes. The water must be fetched, the floor scrubbed, the master's slippers polished. Life's insistence is practical. Work still demands to be done. You resume your tasks, not because the pain is gone, but because that is what keeps a body breathing in Rome. Endurance is not nobility here. It is the last available skill. You hold to it, bruise by bruise, as the city around you continues its confident bustle, indifferent to the markings that say you belong. When the sun burns high and the overseer's whip hangs heavy in the air, friendship feels impossible. Each boy bent under labor seems locked inside his own pain, his own fight for survival. But when the day ends and the chains rattle you back into the dark of the barracks, the silence fills with something softer, something fragile but necessary. It is in that silence, after hours of command and punishment, that you discover the only thing Rome cannot script or buy, the companionship of those who suffer beside you. The first bond begins with something so small it seems almost laughable. A crust of bread slipped into your hand under cover of shadows, pressed by a boy whose name you barely know. He gives no explanation, no words, only a glance that says, "You looked hungrier than I did today." You want to refuse, ashamed to take from someone who has as little as you, but your body betrays you, seizing the food, chewing, swallowing before your pride can intervene. Later, when you find yourself with an extra fig discarded at a banquet, you remember him and place it on his mat. Nothing is said. The exchange is its own language. The barracks is crowded, bodies packed on straw mats, the air heavy with sweat, mold, and the lingering scent of wounds that will not heal. In daylight, those bodies are anonymous, whipped into a collective machine of labor. But in the night, when chains grow quiet, the individuality emerges in whispers. You learn fragments of lives, not full stories, but glimpses. A boy from the east who once herded goats. A boy from Gaul who can whistle songs that sound like birds. Another who remembers the taste of honey his mother gave him on festival days. You cling to these details the way drowning men cling to driftwood. They remind you that you are not machines, not tools, but people, though Rome works endlessly to erase that truth. Some nights, laughter erupts, hushed and sudden, like sparks struck in darkness. Someone mimics the pompous walk of a master, exaggerating his gestures until shoulders shake with stifled amusement. Another whispers a rude rhyme about the overseer's bald head. The humor is dangerous. If discovered, it could mean lashes or worse, but it is irresistible. Laughter becomes rebellion, not against Rome itself, but against despair. In those moments you feel lighter, as though the chains loosened just enough for your chest to expand fully. The brotherhood deepens during punishment. When one boy is beaten, the others share in his pain afterward, not by grand gestures, but by quiet acts. Adjusting his mat so he lies more comfortably, tearing a strip of cloth from a tunic to bind a wound, pressing a wet rag against swollen skin. No one speaks of it. Words are not needed. The care is instinctive, born from the understanding that today it is him, tomorrow it will be you. Cruelty isolates during the day, but at night solidarity stitches the wounds back together. You discover the power of a hand on your shoulder, After one of your own punishments, body trembling, back raw, you lie unable to find sleep. Beside you, a boy extends his hand, resting it gently on your arm. The weight is light, almost nothing, yet it steadies you more than food or rest. The gesture tells you, you are not invisible to me. Your suffering is seen. That simple contact becomes a memory you return to in darker moments, proof that even in chains, touch can heal as well as harm. Whispers in the dark also hold lessons. Older boys explain how to avoid an overseer's worst wrath, how to carry water without spilling, how to angle your back so the lash lands where flesh heals faster. These teachings are passed down like family secrets, survival techniques honed by bodies that refuse to vanish quietly. You are taught how to steal a moment's rest without being caught, how to tuck away a crumb of bread, how to interpret the master's shifting moods. The advice is not written on wax tablets but etched into memory, into bone. You feel yourself becoming part of a lineage of endurance, a hidden school where the curriculum is survival. The friendships are not free of tension. Hunger sharpens tempers, exhaustion frays patience. Fights break out over scraps, over words misheard, over the smallest perceived insult. Sometimes you hear sobbing muffled into straw, a boy breaking under the weight of it all, muttering curses against everyone, even those who care for him. Yet even after anger flares, reconciliation comes. A loaf is split, an apology whispered, and the fragile network reforms. The bonds may bend, but they rarely break, for everyone knows that without them the darkness would swallow you whole. There are nights when the barracks feels almost holy. Someone begins humming a tune from home, and others join, voices weaving together into a low, wordless song. The sound fills the stale air with something alive, something that carries memory beyond the walls. You close your eyes and listen, letting the melody pull you elsewhere, back to fields you will never walk again, back to the laughter of family faces now lost. The song becomes prayer, protest, comfort, all at once. In that harmony, however faint, you feel part of something larger than chains. Dreams are shared too, though cautiously. One boy whispers of escape, of slipping away during a market trip and vanishing into the hills. Others hush him quickly, reminding him of the crucifixions along the roads, bodies twisted into warnings. Still, the dream lingers in the silence after, and for a moment everyone allows themselves to imagine. To imagine is dangerous, but it is also necessary. Without imagination, the future is only an endless chain of days identical to the last. The Brotherhood allows you to hold the dream for a breath before burying it again. In daylight, those bonds vanish under the lash of routine. You dare not speak openly, dare not risk showing familiarity in front of the masters. To them, solidarity among slaves is threatening, a seed of rebellion to be stamped out, so you keep it hidden, your glances quick, your gestures subtle. A nod when passing in the courtyard, a brush of fingers when handing off a tool, a wordless glance that says, "I am with you." The secrecy only strengthens it, turning friendship into a kind of resistance. As time passes, you realize that survival is not only about endurance of the body, it is about endurance of the heart, the refusal to let cruelty strip you of all warmth. The Brotherhood keeps a spark alive in you, something Rome cannot extinguish no matter how many lashes it delivers. That spark is carried from boy to boy, night to night, loaf to loaf, scar to scar. It is fragile, but it is also unbreakable. And so when you lie on the straw at night, the chains heavy around your wrists, you know that you are not entirely alone. You hear the breathing of others beside you, feel their bodies radiating heat in the cold, remember their laughter echoing softly in the dark. You carry their names, their faces, voices, their whispered words, and they carry yours. Rome may own your body, but in the barracks, in the quiet brotherhood of chains, your soul finds a way to remain your own. The first time you are sent into the market, you almost feel as though you are being trusted. The villa gates open, and for a moment the world beyond feels wide, full of noise and movement, so different from the walls and courtyards where most of your days are spent. But the guard's hand stays firm on your shoulder, and the collar at your neck makes sure you do not forget. You carry baskets woven of reed, heavy with jars to be filled or space to be packed with goods, and the air of the forum hits you like a wave. Smells crash together, fish drying in the sun, sweet figs bursting with juice, hot bread wafting from stalls, garlic, vinegar, sweat and dung. Voices rise above it all, shouting prices, laughing, haggling, calling out wares. It is overwhelming, a chaos that seems alive. For the citizens who stroll through with purses jangling, it is freedom. For you, it is labor. Your master's steward walks ahead, dictating what must be bought. You trail behind, your arms tightening around the baskets with every purchase. Grain weighs like stone, amphorae of oil slosh dangerously with each step, and still more is heaped on top. You strain silently because you know what happens if you stumble. The free citizens do not notice you except when you block their path. To them, you are furniture that moves, part of the clutter of Rome. You envy the way they toss coins casually across counters, the way they taste olives before buying, the way they walk away unburdened while you stagger under the load. Yet the market has its strange allure. You hear languages from every corner of the empire, Greek, Egyptian, Gaulish, words you do not understand but which spark curiosity. You see stalls with brightly dyed cloth, beads of glass, bronze figurines, and spices that smell of distant places you will never visit. The city hums with possibility, but it is not possibility for you. You stand in the middle of Rome's abundance and know it is barred from you more securely than any locked door. Even the scraps left on the ground are not yours unless the steward allows it. When you dare to glance too long at a plum rolling loose, he strikes you on the ear and reminds you sharply of your place. Sometimes errands take you into the bathhouses, another realm of Rome where freedom flaunts itself. The baths are always steaming, clouds rolling off heated pools, the air heavy with the mingled scents of oil and sweat. The walls gleam with marble and mosaics, and voices echo endlessly against the domes. You are ordered to scrub benches, to collect discarded sandals, to carry towels and jars of oil for those who recline with easy grace. Free men strip without shame, their bodies pale or sunburned, some soft with indulgence, others muscled from campaigns or training. They laugh, debate politics, recite verses, splash water as if the world exists for their amusement. You move quietly among them, a shadow with tasks, careful not to meet their eyes unless they call for you. The work itself is not the worst. You dip rags in water, scrub at stone until your knuckles sting, pour oil into waiting hands, rub it into shoulders as commanded. What grinds against you is the proximity. You brush shoulders with citizens, the most ordinary of whom commands more dignity than you will ever be allowed. They speak of their errands, their estates, their families, never pausing to consider that the boy kneeling at their feet has none of these. Sometimes they mock, turning your silence into entertainment. This one must be dumb, they laugh. Or they pinch your cheek and remark how useful a boy like you would be for their household, as if you are not already owned, as if you are a coin to be traded with words alone. Other dangers lurk in those steaming rooms. A drunken man might beckon you closer, fingers curling into your collar, pulling you against him. A group of young men might jostle you, daring each other to see if you flinch. Even in service, your body is not your own. You learn to become invisible while standing in plain sight, to make yourself small but efficient, quick but silent. You are there to work, not to exist. The bathhouse also confronts you with the cruelty of contrasts. You watch citizens soak in hot pools after long banquets while you have never once bathed in such luxury. You scrub their backs while your own skin remains streaked with dirt that you cannot reach. You smell their perfumes as you rub oil into their arms, perfumes you will never wear, scents that linger on your hands long after you are dismissed. The irony is bitter. You know intimately the pleasures of the bath, but only as a servant, never as a participant. And still there are fleeting moments that complicate it all. Once, an old man dropped a small bronze coin beside the pool after you poured oil for him. He told you to take it. Your heart pounded as you reached for it, half expecting the steward to strike you, but no one stopped you. The coin sat warm in your palm all day, the first you had ever been given. You knew it did not make you rich, not even close, but for a brief moment it felt like you existed as something more than hands. Another time a young citizen spoke kindly to you, asking where you were from, what language you first spoke. You answered cautiously, but his curiosity felt genuine. The steward whisked you away before more could be said, but that small exchange echoed in your thoughts for weeks, proof that not every free person saw only property. Yet such moments are rare, and they do not outweigh the reality. You return from markets with your back aching, from bathhouses with your lungs tight from steam. And at night, you lie on straw, remembering how free men lounged where you scrubbed. Rome shows you its abundance not to tempt you, but to remind you of the gulf. The city wants you near enough to serve, never near enough to belong. And so you continue day after day, carrying baskets past stalls laden with fruits you will not taste, scrubbing floors beside pools you cannot enter, brushing shoulders with men who will never call you equal. The market and the bathhouse teach you a lesson harsher than the fields. Labor does not only exhaust the body, it humiliates the soul. To exist so close to Rome's pleasures and be barred from them is its own punishment. A constant reminder that you live in a city that thrives on the work of your hands while denying you every fruit of it. But in the quiet moments, walking back from the forum as the sun sets over temples, pausing in the bathhouse corridor when the steam clears just enough to reveal the glitter of mosaic tiles, you feel a strange defiance. You have seen Rome's heart up close, more intimately than most citizens. You know its rhythms, its smells, its textures. It cannot erase the fact that you have walked through its grandeur, even if you walked there with chains. That knowledge does not free you, but it plants itself deep, a hidden claim. You may belong to Rome, but Rome will never fully own the memory of what you have seen. The march begins before dawn, when the camp still smells of damp earth and smoke from the night's fires. The soldiers grumble as they strap on armor, the clatter of shields and helmets filling the air like thunder. You move among them unseen, though you are never truly invisible. You carry their baggage, packs stuffed with rations, spare tunics, whetstones and tent poles that feel heavier with each mile. The legionaries call their packs Muli Mariani, the mules of Marius, but in truth it is your shoulders, not theirs, that bear the weight. They march with spears in hand and plumes rising from helmets, and you march with your back bent under the cargo that keeps the army alive. You rise when they rise, eat when they allow you scraps, rest only when the camp halts. The dust of the road clings to your skin, mingling with sweat until you feel caked in mud that no bath will ever wash away. The soldiers laugh and boast of their conquests, their pay, their women. They sing marching songs, voices bold, filling the air with the pride of Rome. You keep your head down and say nothing. No song is yours to sing. Your duties are endless, though none are glorious. wood for fires, haul water from streams, sharpen stakes for the fortifications that must be raised each evening. You help pitch tents you will never sleep in, spreading hides and pounding stakes while the legionaries lounge or gamble. When they eat, you serve them, cutting bread, stirring pots, roasting meat if the day's march brought a successful hunt or raid. The smell fills your stomach with longing, but you swallow it, waiting for scraps that fall from the platter or bones tossed aside. At night, the camp bustles with activity. Smiths hammering armor back into shape, surgeons tending wounds, soldiers playing dice by the fire. You move quietly through it all, cleaning weapons, oiling leather, fetching water for men too tired or too proud to fetch it themselves. If a spear shaft snaps, it is your job to sand and bind a new one. If a tent leaks, you mend it with clumsy stitches while the rain soaks your back. There is no end to the tasks and no gratitude either. The soldiers boast of their victories, of battles won and enemies crushed, but they never mention the boys who scrubbed their armor until it gleamed or patched their cloaks when cold winds cut across the hills. When the army marches into battle, the fear that swells inside you is different from the legionaries' fear. They fear death on the field, the clash of swords and the whistle of arrows. You fear being left behind in the carnage, trampled under horses, cut down by fleeing foes or taken by soldiers who see you as plunder no different from gold or cattle. You stand at the edges carrying water skins, dragging the wounded back toward the lines, trying not to watch as men fall screaming into the dirt. When the clash ends and Rome claims another victory, the soldiers cheer and lift their standards high. You kneel in the mud, soaked in blood that is not yours, cleaning weapons that tomorrow will spill more. The march resumes quickly after battle. The legions surge forward, driving Rome's borders ever outward, and you stumble behind them, arms aching from burdens that never lighten. The road stretches on endlessly, stone paths laid by earlier campaigns, winding through forests, rivers, and mountains. You see more of the empire than most free citizens ever will. Distant villages burning, vast plains rolling toward horizons you never imagined. But the sight does not belong to you. Each view is only a backdrop for labor. You never pause to admire, only to lift, to carry, to obey. The soldiers are both your guardians and your tormentors. Some treat you with indifference, throwing commands at you as though you were a mule. Others find sport in mocking you, tossing dice for the privilege of striking you with a switch if you stumble. A rare few show scraps of kindness, an extra crust of bread, a word of encouragement, a hand steadying you when you collapse. You cling to those moments though they are fleeting. Most of the time you are reminded that you are less than they are, even less than their pack animals, because the animals are cared for. You are simply driven. When the legion returns to Rome, the triumphs are held for the generals, laurel crowns placed on their heads, golden chariots rolling through the streets. Citizens cheer, throwing flowers, shouting praise for victories that will be carved into monuments. You march behind, unseen, hauling baggage, cleaning messes, tending the wounds of those who bled for glory. The crowd does not look at you. They see the gleam of armor, the glint of trophies, the disciplined lines of soldiers. They do not see the bent backs, the blistered feet, the silent boys who trudged every mile of the same road and built every camp that made those victories possible. The cruelest truth is that Rome depends on you but will never admit it. The empire is carried not only by soldiers with spears, but by the enslaved who feed them, clothe them, patch their wounds, and drag their gear across the continent. You are the shadow of the legion, its skeleton crew, always present, never praised. You march Rome's empire forward step by step, but your footsteps are never recorded. Your name is never etched into monuments. The roads you help build, the walls you help raise, the camps you help sustain, none of them bear the memory of your labor. And yet even knowing this, you endure. You march because the lash demands it. You carry because hunger leaves you no choice. You scrub, mend, cook, and bleed, because in this machine of conquest, endurance is the only currency you hold. The soldiers cheer, the generals bask in glory, the citizens swell with pride, and you remain in chains, the silent force pushing the empire forward. You tell yourself quietly that without you the machine would falter, that the legion's victories are not theirs alone. It does not change your fate, but it keeps you standing when your knees threaten to buckle. And so you march on, through dust, through mud, through blood, across rivers and plains, up mountains and down valleys, always behind the standards, always beneath the gaze of the eagle. Rome grows larger with each campaign, its power stretching farther, its shadow deepening, and within that shadow you remain, an enslaved boy following the legions, carrying burdens that will never earn you glory, marching a road that never leads home. At night, when the barracks is quiet and the only sound is the soft breathing of boys stretched out on straw, the whispers begin. They pass like smoke through the dark, stories carried from one mouth to another, stories about freedom. Someone always claims to have known a man who earned it, a kitchen slave who served faithfully for decades, given his liberty on the master's deathbed. A scribe whose skill was so valuable he was permitted to buy himself with savings scraped from tiny gifts and tips. A gladiator who won so many victories that the crowd demanded his release. The tales multiply, change shape, grow brighter with each retelling, until they glimmer in the shadows like stars. You listen, and though you know better, you cannot help but imagine yourself among them. The word itself, manumission, tastes strange when whispered. It feels too big for your mouth, too heavy for your tongue, a word that belongs to courts and decrees, not to boys in chains. Yet you hold it close, because it carries within it the possibility of transformation. You picture the ritual as it has been described, standing in the forum, your master present, a magistrate declaring you free before the gods and the law. You imagine the wooden cap the Peleus placed upon your shaved head, a symbol as small as a cup, yet as vast as the sky. For the first time in your life, you would belong to yourself. But dreams are fragile things in Rome, especially for the enslaved. Each day crushes them beneath routine. You wake not to the voice of freedom, but to the whip of command. You carry water, scrub floors, serve at banquets, and the thought of a wooden cap seems laughable when your hands are raw and your back aches from stooping. You tell yourself that perhaps if you endure, if you are obedient, if you prove yourself valuable, the master might notice. Yet the truth creeps in whenever you see his face. He does not see you as a person who could one day walk free. He sees you as labor, as property, as an extension of his wealth. Why would he release what increases his comfort? Still, the stories persist, and with them, your imagination. You picture walking through Rome as a free man, no collar around your neck, no one to command your movements. You would earn wages, rent a room, eat bread you bought with your own coin. You would speak your own name again, no longer forced to answer to the one imposed upon you. Perhaps you would even marry, raise children who would never know chains. In these visions, you are taller, straighter, your chest wide with dignity. You almost believe it until the guard kicks your mat and orders you back to work. Then the dream fades into smoke. Occasionally you see a freedman in the streets. His cap is plain, his clothing modest. But there is a bearing to him that makes you stare. He moves differently, not quickly like a citizen nor cautiously like a slave, but with a quiet certainty as though every step is his own decision. He speaks to others without lowering his eyes, buys food from stalls with his own hand, sits in taverns where you would never be allowed. He is not entirely free. He owes duties to his former master, obligations that shadow him even now. But compared to you, he is a king. You wonder how he earned it, whether he endured patiently or fought cleverly, and you wonder if such fortune could ever fall on you. The cruelty lies not only in the rarity of manumission, but in the way hope itself is used as a chain. Masters dangle it before you like bait, promising reward for obedience, murmuring that loyalty may one day be honored. You bend yourself to tasks with greater effort, not because you believe in their kindness, but because you cannot extinguish the faint glimmer that they might speak your name before a magistrate. And when years pass without reward, when you see old men still stooped under burdens, you feel the bitterness rising in your chest. Hope becomes another whip, invisible but stinging all the same. You begin to notice who is chosen for such fates. Those skilled in letters, who can handle accounts and correspondence. Those who manage estates with a cunning that enriches their masters. Those who save every coin tossed their way, hoarding for years until they can purchase their own release. Rarely is it the farmhand, the quarry labourer, the boy in chains beside you. Rarely is it someone whose body has been consumed by the endless grind of ordinary tasks. You realize, with a heaviness that sits like stone in your gut, that freedom is not only rare but also cruelly selective. And yet, you cannot stop yourself from imagining the cap. At odd moments while scrubbing a floor or carrying baskets through the market, the image flashes before your eyes. You see yourself standing tall in the forum, the magistrate's voice booming, the crowd watching, your master nodding solemnly. The cap is set upon your head, and you feel a weight lift from your shoulders that you have never known. The fantasy is so vivid that sometimes, in the darkness before sleep, you reach for your head as though expecting to feel it resting there. Of course, there is nothing, only sweat, straw, and iron. Hope and despair twist together until they become indistinguishable. The dream of manumission drives you forward, gives you something to cling to on days when labour blurs into endless grey. But the impossibility of it gnaws at you, makes every disappointment sharper, every lash heavier. You live between those two poles, caught in a space where freedom feels both just within reach and forever out of grasp. You think often of what you would do if you ever achieved it. Would you stay in Rome, carving out a life among its alleys and markets? Would you return to the place of your birth, if you could even find it again? Would you search for family, if any still lived? Or would you simply wander, savouring the act of walking where you pleased, sleeping where you chose? The possibilities multiply until they overwhelm you, and then they collapse under the weight of reality. Tomorrow you will wake in chains again. The boys around you whisper the same dreams. Sometimes you trade them like treasures, each offering a different vision. One speaks of opening a shop, another of sailing the seas, another of owning land. You nod, smile faintly. Let the warmth of the shared dream soften you. None of you say aloud what you all know, that most of you will die long before freedom is ever granted, that the pileous is not a destiny but a lottery few ever win. Still, the stories continue, because without them the nights would be too long, the days too crushing. And so you live in the tension of it, bound not only by iron but by the hope that one day those irons might fall away. The hope is cruel, yes, but it is also necessary. Without it, you might stop rising from the mat each morning. Without it, you might let despair hollow you out until nothing remains. You cling to the dream of manumission because it is all you have, because even if it never comes, it keeps a part of you alive. And in a life where everything else is taken, even a false hope becomes precious. At night, when the lamps are extinguished and the villa falls into silence, the whispers start. They drift across the barracks like smoke, faint and dangerous, shared only when the guards are too drowsy to notice. Someone always brings up Spartacus. His name is passed around like contraband, each syllable heavy with both awe and terror. A Thracian gladiator who led thousands of slaves against Rome itself. a man who defied the masters, who carved his name into history with blood and fire. The boys repeat his story in fragments: battles won, legions humiliated, entire towns trembling at the sight of his army. For a few moments you can almost feel it, that surge of possibility, the thought that chains might be broken not by gift or decree, but by force. But the story never ends with victory. It always ends with the roads lined in crucifixions, with bodies hanging for miles, black silhouettes against the sun, each one screaming wordlessly that rebellion is folly. You have walked past those roads before, seen the sagging forms of men who once dared to hope. The smell alone is enough to scorch the memory into you forever, flesh and rot mingling with dust. Rome does not allow you to forget. Every nail driven through a hand is a decree carved into the landscape. Obedience is survival. Disobedience is death stretched slow. Still, the whispers persist. After a day of endless labor, when exhaustion should silence even dreams, boys huddle close, daring to imagine. What if the guards were overpowered one night? What if tools could become weapons? What if the fields, full of men already hardened by toil, rose all at once? The thoughts bloom like wildflowers in the dark, fragile but intoxicating. For a heartbeat you let yourself believe that freedom could be seized, that Rome's might could be challenged. Your chest rises, hope quickens your pulse, and then you remember the crucifixions and the wildflower withers. You understand the seduction of the idea. The lash cuts less when you tell yourself you might one day strike back. The collar feels lighter when you imagine tearing it off in a storm of revolt. Even if the hope is impossible, it warms the cold nights. And yet deep down, fear coils around it, constricting until breath is difficult. You fear not only Rome's reprisal, but also the thought of watching those you share bread with strung up on wooden beams, eyes glazed, mouths open in silent agony. You fear that their suffering would be worse than the chains you already endure. The masters know this too. That is why they speak Spartacus's name with venom, why they ensure the roads remain lined with crucified bodies long after the vultures have picked them clean. They want the lesson to linger, to seep into your bones until rebellion feels like madness. And it works. Even when the whispers grow bold, even when anger thickens your blood, the vision of those crosses flashes before your eyes. The hope of freedom collides with the certainty of pain, and silence falls again. Yet the thought never dies completely. During long marches with the legions, you look around at the lines of enslaved boys carrying gear, and the question surfaces, what if we refused? In the markets, hauling baskets beside others, you notice how many hands bear calluses like yours, how many shoulders bend under loads. The numbers alone tempt you. Rome thrives on you, depends on you, and you know it. If everyone turned at once, what could even the legions do? It is a dangerous line of thought, but once imagined, it refuses to leave. You wonder if Spartacus felt the same way, if he too began with a single whisper, a single night of anger and exhaustion that bloomed into action. Perhaps he looked at his fellow gladiators and thought, we are many, and they are few. The tale inspires you even as it terrifies you, because if one man could make Rome tremble, maybe it could be done again. Maybe the crosses are not just warnings, but reminders that Rome fears you more than it admits. But morning always comes, and with it, the reality of survival. The guards shout, the tools are thrust into your hands, and the routine swallows you whole. You cannot afford to dream when your body is demanded for labor. You cannot plot rebellion when a spilled drop of wine can earn lashes. You live in a constant negotiation with yourself, balancing the hunger for freedom with the instinct to survive another day. And so the whispers remain whispers. They are shared in the dark, fueling you just enough to rise again at dawn. You carry them like embers tucked into the folds of your memory, glowing faintly, never extinguished, but never bursting into flame. Rome ensures it. Fear ensures it. You march the empire forward, build its walls, scrub its floors, and all the while the thought lingers unspoken. If we rose, we could shake this world. But you do not rise. You endure. The crosses stand as Rome's answer, stretching across the roads, a horizon of agony that silences every daring thought. You pass them again and again, and each time you lower your eyes, whispering silently to yourself that you will not be one of them. And yet, even as you tell yourself that, the name Spartacus hovers in your mind, stubborn as a scar. You fear it, you revere it, and you cannot let it go. The rituals begin before you are even fully awake. A guard shakes you from the straw, and before the ache in your back has faded, before your stomach has stopped growling from yesterday's meager scraps, you are marched into the atrium where the household shrine glows with flickering lamps. The lararium is painted with bright figures, household gods standing eternal in their stiff poses, eyes that seem to follow you as you shuffle forward with the others. An older slave kneels first, sprinkling grains of salt and meal onto the small brazier. Smoke rises sharp, and the scent fills your nostrils. You do not know the names of all these gods, yet you bow anyway because the master is watching. If your head does not bend low enough, if your hand trembles as you scatter the incense, punishment may follow. Piety here is not faith, it is performance. The masters speak of their gods with confidence. They call upon Jupiter to guard the household, upon Mars to grant victory, upon Vesta to keep the hearth flame alive. You repeat the words they put in your mouth, but the syllables feel strange, belonging to another tongue. You remember the gods of your homeland, different names, different faces, but those names have grown faint, half forbidden, replaced by these new ones you are told must rule you now. Sometimes in secret you whisper the old prayers into your straw mat at night, a hedge against forgetting, a thread of memory that ties you to who you once were. But by day you bow to the gods of Rome, because refusal is not an option. Sacrifice is constant. You clean the altars, polish the lamps, pour the wine, and when an animal is brought, you help hold it still. The knife flashes, the blood gushes, and the master nods in satisfaction as the priest chants. You swallow your revulsion and remind yourself not to flinch because flinching looks like disrespect. The smell of hot blood clings to your hands long after the ritual ends, and still you must return to scrubbing floors and carrying water as if nothing has happened. The gods demand blood, the master demands obedience, and you provide both without question. Superstition bleeds into every task. If a cup shatters during a banquet, the omen must be explained. If a crow caws at dawn, the household shifts its plans. The masters consult augurs who read the flight of birds, haruspices who peer into the livers of sheep, and then they command you to carry out their decrees. You feel the absurdity of it, your body whipped for failing at a task, while a flock of sparrows determines whether a journey begins, but you keep silent. It is not your place to laugh, it is your place to obey. For you and the other boys, superstition becomes its own underground faith. You cling to small rituals, not because you believe, but because you need something to hold on to. A pebble kept in your fist during punishment because an older boy swore it dulls the lash. A whispered charm before hauling heavy loads because someone once claimed it gave them strength. A habit of spitting twice over your shoulder when the overseer looks too long at you. These gestures mean nothing, and yet they mean everything, because they are yours. They are a way of saying that the world has not entirely stripped you of power. You learn to live in two layers of belief. On the surface, you perform the rites demanded of you, lighting lamps, bowing low, scattering incense, always under the gaze of masters and guards. Beneath, In the shadows, you cling to scraps of old prayers and half-invented charms, rituals whispered in the dark to gods you hope are still listening. You do not know if they are real. You do not know if any god cares for boys in chains. But you know that without some kind of prayer, even a false one, the weight of each day would be unbearable. The cruelty is that even your faith is not free. When plague threatens the household, you are sent to scrub the thresholds with salted water, chanting words you barely understand. When the master falls ill, you are ordered to fast, as though your hunger might bribe the gods to heal him. When famine looms, you are marched with others to temples, forced to watch as rich sacrifices are laid before altars, while you are left hungry in the colonnades. Every gesture of worship is another form of labor, one more reminder that nothing, not even the gods, is truly yours. You sometimes dream of refusing, of spitting on the shrine, of shouting that the gods of Rome have done nothing for you. But you have seen what happens to those who falter in ritual. A boy once dropped the incense dish in front of the master. It shattered, scattering grains across the floor. The silence that followed was colder than marble. The master's hand struck the boy's face and lashes followed before the day was done. The gods had not punished him, the master had. You understood then that the gods were not beings to appease, but weapons wielded by those in power. Still, a small part of you clings to the possibility that prayers might matter. When you are feverish, you beg Apollo quietly to spare you. When your belly aches from hunger, you ask Ceres for mercy. When the whip cracks across your back, you plead with Mercury to grant you speed, to let you work fast enough to avoid the next blow. You know it is foolish, but in those desperate moments, words are all you have. And sometimes, when you wake after fever, or when the lash stops sooner than you expected, you wonder if maybe, just maybe, someone listened. The baths, the markets, the temples, all are soaked in devotion, Rome's entire life braided with ritual. And so your life too is bound to it, though you never chose it. You become skilled at lighting lamps in a single breath, at arranging garlands so they look fresh even when they are wilting, at chanting words with the correct rhythm though you do not know their meaning. You are praised not for piety but for precision, and your skill at worship becomes just another task like scrubbing floors or hauling water. Religion in Rome is everywhere, and it is never kind. You see the priests in their fine robes, you hear the songs rising in temples, and you feel only distance. Faith is not warmth here, it is duty, it is display, it is another collar. Yet deep in the barracks, lying on straw with other boys, you whisper a different kind of prayer. It is not to Jupiter, not to Mars, not even to the gods of your childhood whose faces you struggle to recall. It is a prayer without a name, spoken only in silence. Let me live through tomorrow. Let me see another dawn. Let me endure. And though you never know if it is heard, you keep saying it. Because in a world where even piety is labor, prayer becomes your last act of defiance, the only work you do for yourself. The body is the first thing Rome takes from you, though it does not happen all at once. At first it is only hunger, a gnawing in your stomach that you tell yourself will fade when you get used to smaller rations. But hunger never fades. It becomes the air you breathe, the rhythm of your days. Bread is coarse and hard, sometimes little more than ground husks mixed with water. Beans appear in the pot when fortune smiles, but there is never enough to fill you. Meat is a rarity, usually scraps clinging to bone, and when you do eat it, your body trembles with the shock of sudden strength. Slowly, your frame changes. Where boys of your age should be growing taller, stronger, your limbs stay thin, your shoulders narrow. Hunger presses against your bones and keeps them from stretching. You see yourself reflected in a bronze jug once, startled by how childlike your body still looks, and realize with dread that you will never grow into the man you should have been. The lash adds its own handwriting across your skin. The first scars are thin, pink lines that fade almost to nothing, but repetition thickens them into ropes that twist across your back and shoulders. You carry them like an invisible map, each scar a story you never told, but that your body remembers in silence. The welts harden into ridges, raised islands on your flesh, until even in sleep you feel their texture when you roll against straw. At times when sweat stings the half-healed cuts, it feels as though your body has become a parchment rewritten again and again by pain. You wonder if anyone could read it like a history, if the scars tell truths more honest than any Roman inscription carved into stone. Worse than the whip are the infections. Small cuts fester quickly in this life. A blister from carrying amphorae bursts, fills with dirt, swells red, and soon your hand aches so badly you can barely grip. You hide it because you know showing weakness will bring punishment, but at night the throbbing keeps you awake. When fever follows, you lie shivering, sweat pooling in your tunic, whispering prayers to gods you barely believe in. Sometimes fever breaks, sometimes it doesn't. You have seen boys carried out and never returned, their bodies dumped into shallow pits at the edge of the city. Death comes not as drama, but as quiet collapse, a slow surrender to filth and exhaustion. The work itself bends you. Long hours stooping to scrub floors or weed fields twist your spine until standing straight feels unnatural. Shoulders ache from the endless weight of baskets, knees crack when you rise too quickly, fingers curl from gripping tools day after day. You hear the joints of older slaves pop like dry branches when they move, and though you are still young, the same sounds are beginning in your own body. You sense that age is rushing at you, pressing years of wear into bones meant for youth. By the time you should be a man, you will already feel old. The face you carry grows harder too. Hunger carves hollows beneath your cheekbones. Labor etches lines into your brow. Punishment tightens your jaw into a mask of silence. When you catch sight of yourself in water or polished bronze, you sometimes do not recognize the boy staring back. His eyes look older than yours should, weary, cautious, carrying the shadows of things too heavy for his age. You think of children playing in fields, their laughter ringing, and the contrast makes your chest ache. That life is gone, if it ever truly belonged to you. You were sold into adulthood before you had the chance to finish being a child. There is a cruel irony in how Rome praises the bodies of its freeborn youth. Statues gleam with smooth muscles, marble carved to celebrate strength and beauty. In the baths, young men lounge proudly, oil shining on their skin, laughing as though the world itself exists for their comfort. You see them sometimes when you are sent to scrub floors or carry towels, and the comparison slices deep. They are what you might have been, what hunger and labor stole from you. Where their bodies blossom, yours collapses. Where they grow tall and broad, you shrink inward, bones straining beneath skin. You are reminded constantly that you were not meant to flourish, only to serve. And yet the body resists in its own way. Even broken, even starved, it clings stubbornly to life. You wake each morning despite the fever. You rise to carry loads though your legs tremble. You breathe through pain that should silence you. Endurance becomes its own miracle, though it is not a miracle anyone will praise. Rome celebrates victories and monuments. It does not celebrate a boy who continues breathing after too many lashes. But you feel it nonetheless, in the slow rhythm of your heart, in the breath you drag in despite the weight on your chest. Each day survived is a quiet defiance, though no one notices. You watch other boys age before their time. One who cannot be more than 15 walks bent, his back hunched from years of quarry work. Another, still a child by any measure, has missing teeth from being struck. His smile forever altered. Some limp, some cough with lungs scarred from dust. Some squint with eyes clouded by constant smoke. You see your own future in their bodies. You know you will not live long enough to grey. Rome consumes its slaves quickly, and boys burn out faster than men. You are not built to last, and yet you are expected to endure. At night, you lie awake, running your hands over the marks on your body, cataloguing them as if they are all you own. A scar on your shoulder from dropping an amphora, a welt across your thigh from stumbling at a banquet, a lump on your wrist where bone healed poorly after a fall. These are your possessions, your legacy, the only proof you have lived. Rome writes itself in marble and bronze. You are written in scars. Sometimes, despite everything, you remember moments when your body felt light, almost free. A rare laugh shared with another boy. The quick thrill of running barefoot across a courtyard before being caught. The warmth of sun on your skin before the overseer shouted. These flashes are brief, but they remind you of what a body can be when it is not chained, beaten, or starved. They remind you of the possibility of ease, of joy, even if that possibility is never realized. But mostly, you live in the brokenness. You wake stiff, move stiff, and collapse stiff, each day wearing you thinner. You wonder how long before your body simply refuses to rise again, before the hunger finally hollows you out, before infection festers too deep. You fear that moment, but you also expect it. You know it will come, and you know Rome will not stop for it. The fields will still be worked, the baths still scrubbed, the banquets still served. Another boy will take your place, and your broken body will be discarded, forgotten like so many before you. And yet tonight you are still breathing. Tonight your heart still beats, fragile and stubborn. You know it will not last forever, but for now, you cling to it. You hold your breath. You press your hand against your chest and you remind yourself, I am still here. The body may be broken, but it is not yet gone. The mornings are always busiest in the villa. Servants rushing, water sloshing, the clatter of bronze dishes ringing against marble. You are sent hurrying through the atrium, arms full of wood for the kitchen fire, when a small voice calls your name. Not your true name, the one given to you long ago, but the short, clipped syllables the household children have turned into a nickname. You stop because you must. The master's daughter stands in the courtyard, hair tied with ribbons, sandals polished, eyes bright with the imperious confidence only the free are taught to carry. She doesn't ask if you will join her game. She commands it. The wood for the fire can wait. Your labor is interrupted, reshaped. Now you are not a servant but a toy. The children of the household love this role best. When you kneel in the triclinium pouring wine, you are invisible. When you scrub the floors, you are furniture. But when the children decide it, you become their amusement. One day you are a horse, forced to crawl across the garden path on all fours while they climb onto your back, laughing and digging heels into your ribs. Another day you are a monster, told to chase them with arms outstretched, roaring as they shriek and scatter, their laughter ringing through the colonnades. You pretend because you must, stumbling slowly to let them escape, growling because that is what makes them laugh. Yet inside, humiliation burns. Even the smallest child knows you are less than them. Their games remind you with every command, every shove, every giggle. Sometimes their cruelty is not meant, but it cuts just as deep. A boy drops a doll in the dirt and orders you to fetch it, then claps when you obey, praising you as though you were a clever dog. A girl grows bored of playing ball, tosses it at your chest and demands you throw it back again and again until your arm aches. To them this is nothing more than pastime. a way to fill an idle hour before tutors arrive. To you, it is one more layer of servitude, made worse by the fact that it wears the mask of innocence. You learn to read their moods carefully. The eldest son, quick to anger, likes to push you into fountains or slap you when you fail to amuse him. His sisters prefer games of dress-up, wrapping cloth around you, pretending you are a captured barbarian paraded through Rome. They make you kneel, tie vines around your wrists, and march you in circles until they tire of the spectacle. Their friends, other children of wealthy families, sometimes visit, and then the games grow harsher, because cruelty shared becomes entertainment. You stand silent in the courtyard, the center of their circle, while they invent contests to test how obedient you are. Sit, crawl, bark, carry us across the grass. Your compliance is rewarded with laughter. Your hesitation is punished with a slap or a sharp tug on your hair. It is not only games. You are forced into their lessons too, but always as a prop, never a student. When their tutor teaches them letters, you fetch their tablets. When they stumble over Greek verbs, you are scolded for not repeating them loudly enough to help them memorize. When they practice reading aloud, they demand you sit cross-legged and listen, as though your silence will make their voices stronger. You know letters, perhaps more than they do, but you dare not correct them. Knowledge in your mouth would sour their pride. So you sit, nodding, feigning awe, while inside you feel a hollow ache. Education is theirs, obedience is yours. There are moments of softness, though they sting no less. Once, the youngest girl presses half a honey cake into your hand, whispering that you must eat it quickly before her nurse notices. You wolf it down, tongue savoring the rare sweetness, but afterward, shame lingers. She offered it not because she saw you as equal, but because she saw you as pitiable. Another time, the eldest boy clasps your shoulder after a game, smiling as though you are his friend. But later, when you misstep while serving dinner, his hand is the first to strike your cheek. Kindness and cruelty weave together, impossible to separate. Even play can leave bruises. The boys throw stones in mock battles, and when they strike you too hard, they laugh and tell you to toughen up. The girls braid your hair until it pulls at your scalp, then untangle it roughly, complaining that it is not smooth enough. None of it is done with malice, or so they would claim, but each gesture drives the same truth deeper. You are not a companion, not a friend, not a brother. You are theirs to command, to mold into whatever their childish imaginations desire. And because they are free, their laughter carries more weight than your dignity. You wonder sometimes if they even understand what they do. To them, you have always been a slave, part of the household as naturally as fountains or columns. Perhaps they cannot imagine you otherwise. Perhaps their games are not cruelty, but ignorance, the ignorance of children raised in a world where chains are ordinary. But ignorance does not make the sting lighter when your knees scrape against gravel, or when their friends laugh as you crawl across the grass. Ignorance still leaves scars, and so you endure their play as you endure the lash, with clenched teeth and silence. You gallop when told, you roar when ordered, you bow when commanded. You remind yourself that their whims, like all things, will pass. One day they will grow too old for games and their interest in you will fade. But you also know what comes after. The boy who once rode on your back will grow into a man who orders you to carry his shield. The girl who braided your hair will become a woman who commands you to serve her children. Their play is only rehearsal for a lifetime of power. At night, lying on straw, you replay their laughter in your mind, trying to separate the innocent from the cruel. Sometimes you feel pity for them, knowing they will never see the world as it truly is, that their comfort blinds them to the suffering around them. Other times anger surges hot and you imagine refusing, standing tall, telling them you will not crawl like an animal. But those imaginings fade quickly. smothered by the memory of punishment, of lashes, of crucifixes along the roads. You know better than to confuse fantasy with freedom. Still, a part of you holds on to the bitterness. It smoulders quietly, feeding the fire that keeps you human. Their games may reduce you to an object, but you remind yourself, silently, stubbornly, that you are not. You are flesh, bone, memory, will. You are more than their toy, even if the world refuses to admit it. And though you may crawl on hands and knees by day, in the privacy of your own thoughts, you stand taller than any of them. This secret defiance is small, invisible, but it is yours. You grip it tightly each time the children clap and laugh, each time you feel the sting of humiliation. Rome may give its children toys made of flesh and blood, but inside, you whisper to yourself, I am not what they think I am more. And for now, that quiet certainty is the only resistance you can afford. The mornings are always busiest in the villa, servants rushing, water sloshing, the clatter of bronze dishes ringing against marble. You are sent hurrying through the atrium, arms full of wood for the kitchen fire, when a small voice calls your name. Not your true name, the one given to you long ago, but the short, clipped syllables the household children have turned into a nickname. You stop because you must. The master's daughter stands in the courtyard, hair tied with ribbons, sandals polished, eyes bright with the imperious confidence only the free are taught to carry. She doesn't ask if you will join her game. She commands it. The wood for the fire can wait. Your labor is interrupted, reshaped. Now you are not a servant but a toy. The children of the household love this role best. When you kneel in the triclinium pouring wine, you are invisible. When you scrub the floors, you are furniture. But when the children decide it, you become their amusement. One day you are a horse, forced to crawl across the garden path on all fours while they climb onto your back, laughing and digging heels into your ribs. Another day you are a monster, told to chase them with arms outstretched, roaring as they shriek and scatter, their laughter ringing through the colonnades. You pretend because you must, stumbling slowly to let them escape, growling because that is what makes them laugh. Yet inside, humiliation burns. Even the smallest child knows you are less than them. Their games remind you with every command, every shove, every giggle. Sometimes their cruelty is not meant, but it cuts just as deep. A boy drops a doll in the dirt and orders you to fetch it, then claps when you obey, praising you as though you were a clever dog. A girl grows bored of playing ball, tosses it at your chest, and demands you throw it back again and again until your arm aches. To them, this is nothing more than pastime, a way to fill an idle hour before tutors arrive. To you, it is one more layer of servitude, made worse by the fact that it wears the mask of innocence. You learn to read their moods carefully. The eldest son, quick to anger, likes to push you into fountains or slap you when you fail to amuse him. His sisters prefer games of dress-up, wrapping cloth around you, pretending you are a captured barbarian paraded through Rome. They make you kneel, tie vines around your wrists, and march you in circles until they tire of the spectacle. Their friends, other children of wealthy families, sometimes visit, and then the games grow harsher because cruelty shared becomes entertainment. You stand silent in the courtyard, the center of their circle, while they invent contests to test how obedient you are. Sit, crawl, bark, carry us across the grass. Your compliance is rewarded with laughter. Your hesitation is punished with a slap or a sharp tug on your hair. It is not only games. You are forced into their lessons too, but always as a prop, never a student. When their tutor teaches them letters, you fetch their tablets. When they stumble over Greek verbs, you are scolded for not repeating them loudly enough to help them memorize. When they practice reading aloud, they demand you sit cross-legged and listen, as though your silence will make their voices stronger. You know letters, perhaps perhaps more than they do, but you dare not correct them. Knowledge in your mouth would sour their pride. So you sit, nodding, feigning awe, while inside you feel a hollow ache. Education is theirs, obedience is yours. There are moments of softness, though they sting no less. Once the youngest girl presses half a honey cake into your hand, whispering that you must eat it quickly before her nurse notices. You wolf it down, tongue savouring the rare sweetness, but afterward, shame lingers. She offered it not because she saw you as equal, but because she saw you as pitiable. Another time, the eldest boy clasps your shoulder after a game, smiling as though you are his friend, but later, when you misstep while serving dinner, his hand is the first to strike your cheek. Kindness and cruelty weave together, impossible to separate. Even play can leave bruises. The boys throw stones in mock battles, and when they strike you too hard, they laugh and tell you to toughen up. The girls braid your hair until it pulls at your scalp, then untangle it roughly, complaining that it is not smooth enough. None of it is done with malice, or so they would claim, but each gesture drives the same truth deeper. You are not a companion, not a friend, not a brother. You are theirs to command, to mould into whatever their childish imaginations desire, and because they are free, their laughter carries more weight than your dignity. You wonder sometimes if they even understand what they do. To them you have always been a slave, part of the household as naturally as fountains or columns. Perhaps they cannot imagine you otherwise. Perhaps their games are not cruelty but ignorance, the ignorance of children raised in a world where chains are ordinary. But ignorance does not make the sting lighter when your knees scrape against gravel or when their friends laugh as you crawl across the grass. Ignorance still leaves scars. And so you endure their play as you endure the lash, with clenched teeth and silence. You gallop when told, you roar when ordered, you bow when commanded. You remind yourself that their whims, like all things, will pass. One day they will grow too old for games, and their interest in you will fade. But you also know what comes after. The boy who once rode on your back will grow into a man who orders you to carry his shield. The girl who braided your hair will become a woman who commands you to serve her children. Their play is only rehearsal for a lifetime of power. At night, lying on straw, you replay their laughter in your mind, trying to separate the innocent from the cruel. Sometimes you feel pity for them, knowing they will never see the world as it truly is, that their comfort blinds them to the suffering around them. Other times anger surges hot and you imagine refusing, standing tall, telling them you will not crawl like an animal. But those imaginings fade quickly, smothered by the memory of punishment, of lashes, of crucifixes along the roads. You know better than to confuse fantasy with freedom. Still, a part of you holds on to the bitterness. It smoulders quietly, feeding the fire that keeps you human. Their games may reduce you to an object, but you remind yourself silently, stubbornly, that you are not. You are flesh, bone, memory, will. You are more than their toy, even if the world refuses to admit it. And though you may crawl on hands and knees by day, in the privacy of your own thoughts, you stand taller than any of them. This secret defiance is small, invisible, but it is yours. You grip it tightly each time the children clap and laugh, each time you feel the sting of humiliation. Rome may give its children toys made of flesh and blood, but inside you whisper to yourself, I am not what they think I am. I am more. And for now, that quiet certainty is the only resistance you can afford. The thought of escape never leaves you entirely. It creeps into your mind when you carry water through the fields and glimpse the open horizon, when you march with soldiers and notice the tree line just beyond the road, when you are sent to the market and hear foreign tongues that remind you of the world outside Rome's reach. You imagine yourself slipping away into those woods, blending into that crowd, following a river that might lead you home. The vision is so sharp you can almost feel your feet running, your chest heaving with the rhythm of freedom. But the vision always fractures when you remember what happens to those who are caught. You have seen it before. A boy not much older than you once tried during the night, slipping past the barracks door while the guard snored. He made it farther than most. 2 days, they said, before dogs picked up his scent. When the patrol brought him back, his face was swollen, his feet shredded from thorns and rocks, his body limp with exhaustion. They did not kill him quickly. That would have been too merciful. Instead, the master had him beaten in front of the others, each lash splitting open flesh, until he no longer screamed but gasped like a fish on dry land. Then they drove nails through his wrists and hung him at the road's edge, his body left for every traveller to see. For days crows circled, and the smell of rot grew unbearable. You could not look away because that was the point. The cross was not punishment only for him, it was a lesson for everyone else. And yet, despite the horror, whispers of escape continue to circulate. In the dark of the barracks, boys trace maps in the dirt with their fingers, planning routes across hills and rivers. Some speak of sympathetic strangers who might hide fugitives, of villages where slaves live disguised as free men, of distant lands where Rome's grasp weakens. You listen, heart pounding, but doubt gnaws at you. Rome's reach is long. Patrols ride the roads, dogs sniff out trails, villagers fear Roman reprisal too much to offer help. Every path seems to lead back to chains or to death nailed in public. Still, the whispers persist, because even an impossible dream is better than none at all. The countryside itself is enemy and ally both. It stretches wide, offering cover in forests and caves, but it bristles with danger. Dogs are trained to track your scent. Shepherds report strangers on their land. Militia patrol the roads, quick to seize anyone without papers or accent that marks them foreign. Hunger would hunt you too. The little food you can steal for the journey disappears in days, and then the land becomes an enemy, withholding grain and fruit while your stomach shrivels. Those who imagine escape rarely calculate how quickly hunger can undo courage. Even if you reach the city's edge, survival there would not be simple. Rome swarms with slaves, and collars often carry inscriptions naming masters. One glance at your neck could betray you. Markets teem with informants eager to claim rewards. Inns and taverns ask questions, neighbours notice faces, strangers mark accents. To disappear into the city is almost as hard as vanishing into the hills. And always, there is the fear of betrayal, that the person who offers bread might also deliver you back in exchange for coin or favour. Still, you let yourself dream sometimes. You imagine running through the night, stars guiding you, your breath ragged but strong. You imagine crossing a river and feeling its chill wash the brand from your skin. You imagine reaching a distant coast and finding a ship to carry you away. These dreams carry you through the dull rhythm of days, small flames that flicker when despair grows too heavy. You know they are dangerous, but you also know that without them, you would become hollow. The masters understand the danger too. That is why they cultivate fear so meticulously. Crucifixions are placed along roads not only to punish but to remind. Each body nailed upright is a message written in blood and wood. Do not run. The horror becomes part of the landscape, as common as milestones and inns. Children grow up seeing them. Merchants pass by without slowing. Soldiers barely glance. To Rome, they are warnings. To you, they are nightmares carved into daylight. Some try anyway, and a few succeed. You hear rumours of slaves who reached distant provinces, of those who slipped across borders, of men who vanished into the wilds and lived by raiding until old age. These tales are told in hushed tones, half believed, because seen the proof. But the stories matter less for their truth than for their existence. They say escape is not impossible, only improbable. And improbability can be enough to sustain a desperate heart. You wrestle constantly with the balance between survival and hope. To remain is to endure lashes, hunger, humiliation, the slow collapse of your body under labor. To run is to gamble with torture, crucifixion, a death more terrible than the life you know. Which is worse? The question circles your mind endlessly. Sometimes you tell yourself it is better to live in chains than to die on a cross. Other times, when the lash burns fresh, when the hunger claws too sharply, you whisper that death on your own terms might be worth the price. But most days you do neither. You do not rebel. You do not flee. You rise with the others, carry what is placed in your hands, swallow food that barely fills you, and lie down again at night. Survival, not freedom, becomes the rhythm of your life. Rome has mastered this balance, leaving you just enough hope to keep breathing, just enough fear to keep still. And yet, even as you bend under the weight of it, you carry something inside that Rome cannot fully chain. It is the image of running, the sound of wind in your ears, the vision of the horizon opening wide. You know it may never happen. You know that if you try, your body might become another message nailed to wood along the road. But the possibility, however faint, remains a seed. And sometimes in the deepest dark of night, that seed sprouts into courage, if only for a moment, reminding you that you are not yet broken enough to stop imagining. That is the cruelest truth of all, that escape is almost always impossible, yet never completely so. And as long as that sliver of possibility exists, Rome must keep building crosses. You live in the shadow of those crosses, caught between terror and longing, your body chained, your mind always scanning for cracks in the walls of empire. You watch the city age like a body that will not die. Marble that once gleamed under torchlight dulls to ash grey, fountains slow to a rill, and yet the stones keep their stories in the way mortar keeps dust. Emperors change names on monuments, senators carve new victories into slabs, and crowds come and go with each festival and plague. Rome endures in the shape of aqueducts that still sing when rain fills them, in roads that stitch the empire together, in triumphal arches that throw long shadows at sunset. The city is praised for its grandeur, its laws, its conquests, and people study its achievements as if they sprang from empty air. Rarely do the histories tell your name. Rarely do they measure the cost that smoothed the marble, hauled the stone, and tended the baths. You remember the labour that built those things in a way no inscription can. The quarry's dust still sits under your nails when you close your hand in sleep. The rhythm of the hammer is the first lullaby your mind ever learned. You carry the memory of the tiles beneath your knees, the exact cadence of the mosaicist's chant as he set pieces into mortar, the weight of the amphora you once balanced on your shoulder. These small physical recollections outlast the rhetoric of emperors, because they are imprinted in bone as surely as any name is carved into stone. Your story is not a line in a book, but a map of scars and calluses that narrate what the books omit. Generations will point to arches and list the generals who marched beneath them, the dates and treaties, the decrees that stitched provinces to Rome. School children will memorize names of consuls and poets, and guidebooks will boast of engineering genius. Yet when a mason traces his palm across an aqueduct, he feels the groove shaped by hands like yours, hands that shoveled cement, laid bricks, and braved the wind on scaffolds. No one writes the ledger of aching backs, the ledger of meals missed, of children who never grew because their bodies were spent on building someone else's legacy. Those accounts survive only in memory, shared by few and seldom believed by many. You know the cruelty of how memory is chosen. Empires prefer tidy stories, founders, triumphs, laws. They bury the messy, inconvenient truths under clean narratives that flatter the living. So the boy who hauled water to the baths, the lad who polished the consul's helmet, the young scribe who copied the victories into the ledger. These names wash away with rain into gutters and into the soil beneath villas. Even cemeteries for the enslaved, if they existed, are ploughed under by time or construction as Rome rearranges itself. The city's monuments are selective memory. They celebrate the faces who could commission marble and silence the ones whose labour made the commissioning possible. Still, memory is resilient in quieter ways. The songs you hummed at night pass from throat to throat, altered but alive. A proverb you half remember in a foreign language will embed itself in a later child's tongue and become a common saying. Recipes you learned in the kitchens shape future feasts. Tools you fashioned, methods you taught to others, become ordinary practices. The material world keeps your fingerprints in ways scholars may miss. An irregular seam in a wall, the technique of a mason's joint, a stitch pattern in a garment. These are ghosts of labour, subtle and stubborn, proof that while names fade, the work endures. You also carry an inner legacy. The small acts of care you shared in the barracks, the whispered songs and secret prayers, the ways you taught a younger boy to carry a water jar without spilling, these are passed on. Compassion threads through suffering and outlives masters and statutes. When a freedman shows a kindness based on a memory of what sustained him, that kindness is a seed from you. When a child of a former slave learns to read from a tablet you once traced, your influence has moved quietly into the future. The empire may have been built on chains, but within those chains something stubbornly human traveled forward. Memory, technique, tenderness. When the monuments crumble and the names on arches rot away to illegible scars, new people walk those roads. They do not always know what was paid in flesh for the stones beneath their feet. Sometimes, rarely, someone will pause and ask, will want to know whose hands laid that pavement. Those moments matter. A question is a small unearthing of truth. It can spark a story, and a story can become a whisper, and whispers can gather until they are a kind of reckoning. Your memory, held in the quiet places of the city, can be coaxed into voice if someone listens. Tonight the lamps are low, the villa quiet, the world readying itself for sleep. You trace the faint maps on your palms, scars, calluses, lines that name the work you did. You do not expect grand monuments to rise in your honor. You do not expect verses sung in marble to record your life. Still, you know this. The empire that boasts of itself was stitched together with the labor of boys like you. The splendor has a cost, and the cost is not paid in coin. It is paid in breath and in loss, in shortened nights and bodies that aged before their time. You keep the memory because it is yours, and because remembering is a way of refusing erasure. The city may choose to forget, but you, who lived it, who felt the weight of stone and iron, will not. Someday perhaps a passerby will notice the uneven seam in a wall and ask why it is so. A story will be told, then another, until the silent ledger of labor finds its modest audience. Until then you hold it all inside, a private archive of what was required to make Rome magnificent. You remember because you lived it, and memory, even solitary, is a kind of freedom no empire can fully take away.